It's Wednesday, December 10th, and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 7 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. With me in the room are Andy Olderman, Maury Creighton, Peter Twining, Gar Morse, myself, Sarah Mellish, and also the town administrator and finance director, Andrea Mainville. I don't see any member of the board on Zoom. It looks like it's only Gail. Okay. So tonight I was hoping we could look at the capital budget, not to necessarily finalize it, but to look at the various funding sources and look and see if there's items that we feel it's appropriate to delay for another year. I think I sent an email out which indicated that the school budget, our appropriation is slated to go up 7.86%. And that was a level services budget. So I'm not expecting it to it wasn't an inflated budget. Hi, Ann.
Hi.
It wasn't an inflated budget, what I could say. So that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I think that traditionally with our capital items, well, we also have used up almost all the levy capacity, excess levy capacity. We have between 0.5% and 0.75%. Is that right, Andrea? And we've used up almost all of the excess reserves. So we need to discuss whether we want to dip into the reserves, pull it below 8%.
That's including the closeout of this past fiscal year.
Yeah, what do we have to spend approximately?
For the reserves?
Yeah.
It's 155,000.
Last year we spent 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
That's what we get for on target budgeting.
Yeah.
That's right.
So let's first look at the spreadsheet on the bonding projections for the items were targeted for long-term debt. If you look in obviously the first project, the first column is the project. The second column is the amount of the bond in millions. The third column is the length of the bond. And then across the years, Andrea has calculated what she expects the payments to be, taking into consideration how long it would take to do the projects. On the theory that you're not bonding long-term till the project's completed.
So if we were to see if we were to see out to 42, we'd see in the first one entries for debt service all the way across.
Right.
If that worked, yeah.
Right, and this is just looking at fiscal year 27 through 34 and just showing the impact on the tax rate,
Right.
which is, and so, but I wanted to kind of concentrate on the projects we were talking about bonding this year.
Mhm.
And I also want to discuss bonding April town meeting versus a fall town meeting. Because traditionally, we have not done capital items in the fall town meeting.
Right.
Um,
And what would you be thinking with respect to a year from now? You would be possibly thinking of expanding the bonding questions to the fall?
No, I'm inclined to say if we're gonna have a capital item in the fiscal year 27 budget, it should be in the April town meeting. And if it's not gonna be in the fiscal year 27 budget, then we should be pushing it off till April next year
Okay.
and not try to do it
Yep.
Twice. I think the only exception might be the Council on Aging stuff based on how long it takes them to raise donations.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How much debt does the town have outstanding at this time? Maybe that's an inappropriate question. but-
No, it's very appropriate.
Key question.
I think it's 6 million, but let me give you one.
Sorry, and be a little louder.
It's about 6 million.
6
I
million.
can give you. Exactly.
We have not done long-term bonding in a while.
Okay. That's good.
Well,
This is,
and how much of that is about to mature?
I have the little chart here,
Perfect, okay.
which is showing that in fiscal year 27, there's a drop off in the total bonding. We had a drop off from 26 to 27,
When you say a drop off in the total bonding,
amount bonded.
our debt goes down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Roughly how much?
Maybe 500,000.
Okay, small.
Yeah, you're looking at the same thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, or if you wanna look at this,
Okay.
this is basically a chart that
Oh.
just shows it dropping off.
Maybe look at it for a second.
Yeah.
And that's based on calendar scheduling of payments that would occur in those various years.
Fiscal years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, I believe, also, Andrew, includes school debt, the high school
Yeah.
dropping off
I
and
believe so, yes.
it's combined school and town. Yeah. We're paying about $1 million a year in that service on that, I think.
It's more than that.
Is it?
And when you say debt service, that includes the interest and the principal?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, generally, what we do in town is she generally does bond anticipation notes, which is interest only during the project. And then at the conclusion of the project, does the long-term debt.
Yes.
That's different than what the school did for the memorial school. For the memorial school, the school district actually entered into long-term debt during the project.
And then they had to reinvest the unused proceeds during that period of time.
I mean.
Yeah.
They incurred the debt after they had incurred the expenses, I believe, but because the interest rates were low, they wanted to lock in long-term debt early.
And they issued a ban after and all that.
Okay,
So I believe it should have gone long term this past this fiscal year. So those numbers are fine.
Okay. And is there, excuse me, I'll stop. Is there a perceived total amount of debt that the town of Manchester, in order to maintain its wonderful bond rating, could have? In other words, is that
I think it's
60 million?
I think
or is
it's
it
based on
8
the,
million?
I think it's based on the debt service
Okay,
of 10% of the operating budget, correct?
of the revenues, presumably.
The budget.
The budget.
Okay.
That would be our policy.
But isn't that what the auditor said is reasonable also?
Yes, yeah.
And what is that number?
Let me see what-
Well, 10%, yeah,
Of debt service. Our budget, our operating budget excluding the schools is about 30 million
30 million.
Right.
So we could spend 3 million a year,
to repay debt.
and that would support what principal amount of outstanding bonds? Assuming, municipal bond rates are 4%
Right.
or something.
What is 3 million in debt service?
It was about $89,000 per million,
There you go, okay.
so if you want.
So 3 million,
Divided by 89,000.
Around.
33.7 million.
Okay, so
So we're way under.
we have some
At this moment.
Yeah, right.
breathing room. But let's
Yeah.
not get too giddy.
As things get pretty dark as you go.
Right.
Yeah.
What's our current?
6 million of debt.
So it's about 6.3, and we're paying about $1 million in service of that a year, which is about 5% of our operating budget.
But I was just.
It's just the town side.
I was
The
hearing
building isn't
89,000, we can afford up to 3 million, 89,000 per
Yeah, this is
million, so
appropriate.
therefore 33 million of debt.
We could theoretically,
Right.
In a-
And what's our debt that we have right now?
6.
Right now, yeah, so
It's just 6, okay. Okay.
not just the town side.
I mean, you could do more, it just wouldn't.
Yes, and it's my
That's a
rate
good idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I'm not
That's right,
looking to
it
max
doesn't-
out, but
The 206 number is.
School loans,
It's two,
service,
three
equal
votes
to
on the
the-
school, under debt.
Okay, one person talk at a time, please. Okay, Andy, you asked a question?
I did, I was trying to make sure I was understanding where we were, relative to the 89,000 and the 3 million and
And what was the answer?
so that
Yeah.
the 89,000 per million translates to $33 million of debt capacity that we could have, but we're currently at 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
In rounded numbers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, estimated.
Approximate. Even that,
So
even
I
that
think,
amount, even that is. You know, a lot of assumptions based into that as far as what. Other costs in the operating budget are increasing at what rate? So. As health insurance climbs, as waste disposal climbs, as school climbs. The the percentage of your operating budget that you can dedicate towards debt service starts to reduce. Unless you start cutting other expenses. So there's some assumptions built.
Or doing them for us. Or do overrides.
Or, yeah, right, correct.
Because the debt is excluded from the regular tax rate, so that's already an override. So it's not impacted by the operating budget.
My assumption is that the auditor that put that together was assuming just a 2.5% increase. You know, living under the Prop 2.5.
No, I think that it is. A town should, to be prudent, shouldn't spend more than 10% of its total operating budget on debt service. It has nothing to do with the 2.5% increase a year or anything, it's just as a percentage of the operating budget, and it's not casting concrete. And I think that when we've met with our auditors, they haven't been as concerned about things adversely impacting our bond rating as in some other towns on the basis that our town has a history of funding projects when asked. Isn't that right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
that and that, like, we're proactive in funding our OPEB, investing in downtown, like all those things. That looked favorable for us.
So far.
okay. So we have this spreadsheet of capital items. With a first pass at including it in the tax rate, capital exclusion, CPC, fund balance, enterprise funds, retained earnings from enterprise funds and borrowing, and then some of them have been highlighted as deferring. So when I look at this, it doesn't appear to me this is showing 30 million of borrowing.
It is, but I know we were still talking about the Council on Aging, the Rotunda and the Central Street culvert. Originally, I had not included those.
Right, and I
Right.
think that we were saying defer the council on aging. Because we didn't want to have an appropriation before they'd raised money. Cause it kind of loses their incentive to raise money. I think that with. So the situation with the culvert and the rotunda, did you decrease the rotunda by the amount we'd previously funded?
I did not, and I reached out to see what the total project cost was, just to be sure whether it was. This is in addition to that, what we've already requested, or the total project. I haven't gotten that answer yet.
Okay. So just to refresh people's minds. Last year, fiscal year 26 at town meeting, we approved 800,000 for the rotunda because we'd lost a grant.
Yes.
And CPC approved 500,000. So we had lost a grant of 1.3 million. And we thought we still had the second grant. But we're nervous about the grant, so we wanted to have something, an appropriation in this year's budget in case we don't have a grant to cover that second portion. But we're not clear what that second portion is. Does Chuck know?
He was waiting for Nate.
Fine, okay. And with the culvert, same thing. We feel,
Real quick, sorry, it was
You're gonna
3.5 million.
excuse me, what, Chuck?
Sorry, 3.5 million for the rotunda is the total project costs. So I'm not
Okay.
sure what, so the 1.3, that would mean that there's a 2.2 gap.
Right, and.
Okay.
And the SEC grant is for up to 3 now, I think.
So this 2.2 is the balance of the project. And I guess the feeling was is if we included the culvert and the rotunda as an appropriation, if the grants actually came in, it never hit the tax rate.
Right.
But they need to start the projects in the fall. And without the appropriation, they can't send it out to bid. Is that accurate?
And there's potential, I might find out about the grants before town meeting, right?
Yeah,
Maybe, hopefully.
the Rotunda SEC grants, typically we would have already heard, but the application timeline got pushed back a month or two. So we were expecting to hear about SEC grants mid-December. We haven't heard yet. So it's possible that we could hear by early January and this issue comes off of our plate. For the culvert, we have the brick money. It expires in April. There's no timeline to provide as to when we'll hear if the federal government will potentially give an extension on the contract for the brick money. We are applying for a regional MVP action grant through the state. That is going to, the application process will be, the RFR is going to be released in January. We're going to apply for that and we're going to say if we get that grant, we would withdraw from the brick and we would utilize the state money. Kind of have to put that in there, that basically if we find out that we got the MVP money before we hear about brick, we're gonna just withdraw from brick and move forward under.
And what's the total amount we need for the culvert?
Well, the brick grant was for 4 point. That sounds right,
Yeah.
4.5, 4.6, and we're applying for 5 million through MVP.
And that's the total cost.
Well, there's also, there's a NOAA grant and there's a MassDOT grant and there's some town appropriation for the culvert project as well.
So we need to make sure that the number that's down here is exactly what's left of
That's right.
unknown resources, because we don't want to go in at a higher number. We just want it to be the net amount, because it's my understanding that we've been spending some of the brick money.
Like $1,000.
I thought that we had ordered those concrete arches.
It's on the street. It's we put a procurement out on the
Okay.
street. We haven't received or awarded anything yet. I don't even know if we've received bids yet.
Monday is the bid opening.
Monday, and a big element of that is, can you deliver before
The brick grant
April
expires.
27th,
Okay.
2026?
And Chuck, is it likely that people can deliver by then or not?
It's likely that we will be able to do like a partial payment. So that's what we're planning on. They won't be
Okay.
able to deliver, but
Okay.
basically there's a lot that goes into it, but the Chapter 85 review is like substantial completion, like going to precast. And so therefore we think that's like the value of that is 80% of the contract value. So we can definitely do that by the time we get to April 27th. So as long as MEMA and FEMA play ball and allow us to do a partial, then we're good. But regardless, it's the right way to move forward.
Okay, so this culvert number hopefully will come down by the
So
time we
what
get
is the
there.
total anticipated cost of the culvert? I know this question was asked a moment ago. What do we think the total cost of that project is?
It used to be 7 or 8 million.
Yeah, if you include like Sawmill Brook restoration and that.
Yeah.
too.
So that big number does include the Sawmill Brook. So the 4.6 that you guys are talking about, that brick, that's generally what we consider the culvert portion of the project. And then the balance of it is the NOAA and DOT and everything else. And so that's like, total all-in costs 7.2-ish, something like that, in that range.
So to do the
Or
project,
maybe
you do it or you don't do it. Is the number 4.8 or is it more like 7?
7.2.
7.2, okay.
Is that right?
And it,
that seems high,
what you
but
said, Chuck?
it's in that seems high now that we're saying all that. No, it's around 7. Yeah, it's 7 sounds about right.
Yeah, I thought we were talking 7.
Okay.
So you don't start unless you have 7, right?
Right. Andrea can't sign the contract unless we have the money. And so the money would be all of these buckets that we're talking about for 7 million.
What a deal.
Yeah. that would be- I have a irrelevant question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway.
Okay.
What's going on in the harbor right now? There's a rig in the harbor right now, sort of off of Cox Point. Can you tell me what that is?
So that's work that they're doing on Baker's Island. So it has nothing to do with any town project.
Thank you. Good.
They park it here because it's safe.
Good. Okay.
So can I ask for the culvert, the 5 million that's shown on this other spreadsheet,
yeah,
what is that?
at the bottom.
I think we put 5 in here for this because that's what we're applying for through MVP.
That's a culvert, rounded up culvert cost kind of thing? Okay.
We can only really do this project between, September and March. So every time, and then, we need permits and we need the money in order to, procure and award a contract. So every time we and that all needs to be ahead of schedule so that the project can get done in as quick of a time period as possible between September and March. So it's like every time we kind of miss a window, it's bumping out and adding costs.
And that timeframe is purely just to avoid summer.
No, smelt.
It's the fisheries.
Yeah. The little fishies going on.
That's all part of the permit.
But
It's
in reality,
both. The March is definitely the fisheries element. Chuck would be able to speak to it better than me, but I think it's March to June.
Yeah.
You can't be in the water.
Yeah.
So, ideally, we would want to do it between Labor Day and Memorial Day when there's not as much activity.
So I think if that, just to make sure we're on the same page, the delay on this has not necessarily been the town not wanting to spend this money. I think, hasn't it been a permitting issue? And is that permitting issue resolved at this point?
No,
Okay,
but ask me again soon.
Monday?
Tuesday.
so it's like an echo. We've actually been hearing this for probably 24 months. And I know it's a really complicated issue, but I point it out because it's a bigger question. If we allocate $5 million and the permitting continues to be delayed, and then a grant comes in or a grant doesn't come in, that 5 million flows down to basically our levy limit. Well,
No.
it's
Well, we
Never
clear the levy
bonded.
limit.
It wouldn't be
But-
bonded, so we
so
have
it
to
just-
pay for it.
So it just sort of,
It's authorization.
Yeah.
We wouldn't actually borrow for.
so would that essentially be like capital projects where we anticipate doing something and after 2 or 3 years, we don't do it and then it just gets canceled?
You have to rescind it. So you have a
So
vote at town meeting to rescind the authorization.
Okay, so that then becomes a vote at town meeting to rescind that. And if we allocate that for, say, the Central Street Dam, but we decide we want to reallocate it at some point toward like a DPW building, that obviously has to be a vote.
We can't do that. We have to.
That's to go to town meeting.
We have to have a new vote for
Yeah.
the DPW, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
would have to be a new vote.
and if we used a grant instead of the authorized borrowing for the project, technically you'd rescind it. You would need a vote to rescind it, but since it's for the same project, you really couldn't
Right.
borrow for it anyways, because the project's already done.
Right,
We use grant money for it. So while it's still kind of living, it's really not usable.
Mhm.
So, but you could do the rescinding, rescind vote and just to clean it up.
Well, it looks better on the balance sheet
right,
if you don't have it hanging out there, it seems to me.
yeah.
On the rotunda, we talked, what we had originally thought about was going through CPC, bonding for the total amount of the cost of the project, giving CPC back their 500,000 that they've appropriated for the rotunda project, giving back the 800,000 that the town has appropriated, and just do the whole thing through a bond through CPC. Andrea put together some of the debt calculations on that. It would have a negative impact on CPC's ability to fund projects in the future, because a significant amount of their annual allocation would be dedicated to paying that debt. Alternatively, what Sarah was just speaking to is we hold on to the 1.3 and we just ask, to borrow for the delta. That also could be a CPC, the delta could go through CPC as well, or on, the town side.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of concerns about the issue. Is we went to town meeting last year and we asked for the 1.3 million between the town and CPC because we'd lost a grant.
Right.
I don't want to go back to town meeting for the full amount again. I think that's way too complicated. And I am reluctant to our long-term borrowing. This sheet shows that is not overly burdensome. And we may get more grants in, so I would be reluctant to tie up the CPC money to that extent, merely to bond it through the CPC when we can bond it through the town. I don't think we gain anything by bonding it through CPC.
Does the CPC match apply at all to this?
But we already, yeah, but we already get the match in. We get 16%.
Okay,
So we're not talking about increasing
right.
the CPC total amount. We're talking about taking the 1.5 with the 16% match we already have and reallocating it to a bond for the rotunda instead of spending it on other things.
Right.
So it's not like it's not like increasing the CPC money in order to cover the bond.
So if
But it
you,
is, but it is, we talked a little bit about this, I'm still kind of confused at your thought on that. So you're still reducing the cost to the taxpayers for
No,
the for the project.
we're not, because we're already receiving that 16% in as a match to CPC money, so we're not getting any extra.
Right.
So it's not reducing the cost, it's just moving it from this pot to this pot.
Well,
Well, it's reducing the cost of the Rotunda project to
No.
the taxpayers, but it's
No, it isn't.
eliminating the ability to spend it on something else.
Well, is the difference, it's those something else, you know, and we often talk about that, you know, sometimes the projects that they get in because they're like, anybody, everything they wanna do. You
Right.
know, so we end up doing these.
But we're at the
less than
point,
meaningful
we're at the
things.
point now where they've spent down more, they were carrying excess for a long time.
right,
And they're at the point now where they've pretty well spent it down, isn't that
Yeah,
correct?
So
Yeah.
did the CPC have the 1.3 million in cash?
No,
Okay,
So it's
Yeah, so
it's meaningless to try to like, and possibly damaging to go back to town meeting and recast it.
yeah,
Yeah, we don't need this, we want that instead, and why don't we just kind of continue on and do it?
but I think it's an easier sell to say we need the 2.2 million appropriation.
Yeah.
We're hoping it never hits the tax rate because we're hoping to get grants in to cover it.
Right.
But if we don't, you know, in order to go forward with the project, we need to have this appropriation.
Yeah, hopefully, best case scenario, we find out about the grants before we're in front of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So-
Right,
if the bond that you're talking about, either through the town or through CPC, how many years should that be? For the rotunda?
Yeah, they had it down for 15.
I mean, just as a,
I'm sorry, you said 15?
15. Yeah.
I mean, the town. Again, I always try to think long-term here. The town might have a different opinion about CPC in 2 or 3 or 5 years. And want to do something different about how we do work with CPC. And kind of roping ourselves into a 15-year bond commitment. I think we ought to think really carefully about that.
right,
In
yeah.
general. So.
So can you remind me the money that we did get through town meeting last, was that for design and,
No, it was to offset the grant we had lost.
okay, well, and I'm seeing now, so there's the money, the 2.2 that's carried in the sort of
Right.
spreadsheet.
Is the additional, so the total cost for the rotunda was 3.5.
Yeah.
Right.
Last year before town meeting, we found out that we had lost the CZA, whatever that.
Yeah.
Of 1.3.
Yeah.
So we went before town meeting to get that money.
Right.
Right.
We're hoping to get a grant for the 2.2,
Oh, we might-
but given the status of grants, we have no assurance that we'll get it. And so if we don't put it on the town meeting unless we get the grant before town meeting, then we can't move forward with the project.
Okay.
Because we can't go out to bid.
Mhm. Do we have all the permits for that project?
Doug, do we have all the permits for the rotunda?
Sorry, looking for my mute button. I don't believe we have them in hand, but they're all submitted and we're just awaiting them to be issued. Like there's no back and forth remaining or anything like that. We're just
There's
On
no
the-
legal challenges.
we're on the clock, yeah.
Okay, so the answer is practically yes.
Practically speaking, yes.
And Sarah, if I follow all this discussion, basically the thought comes down that it's for simplicity purposes and other purposes, it is better for the town to borrow the 2.2 than any of the CPC involvement.
Yeah.
Take it to the town meeting in April and look to the whole funding and hopefully move beyond to this endless project.
Right, and hopefully we won't need it,
Yeah, I understand that.
but I don't, not very,
Okay, why wouldn't we have asked for the 3.5 last?
because we were sure we were getting the other grant.
Just because the picture was different. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay.
So you should know, we did submit a CPC application for the full amount, because the
Mhm.
deadline for applications was early December. They're still going through a process, we can change that, don't be alarmed if you see that in front of them.
Well, we're just still awaiting an answer, is that's,
No,
No,
this is CPC.
oh, we're sorry, I'm sorry, CPC,
For
excuse me.
CPC,
Yeah.
we
Sorry.
put an application into CPC
Oh,
for
you
the
did.
Rotunda project, but that's okay, we can,
Yeah,
it's local, we
Yep.
can, we can adjust that, I just
sorry. I
want you
misheard.
guys to be aware that was before we had this conversation.
So just thinking about options here, if that is awarded,
The grant,
the grant,
SEC.
Yeah.
through CPC.
no,
Through SEC.
SEC, I'm sorry, okay, never mind, okay.
Me acronym.
No, that's all right. My mistake, sorry. So the rotunda is not on, your spreadsheet, this guy right here.
yes, it is.
Andrew shaking your head, no. I don't see.
So the main one,
Oh, it's on the main one, not on this one.
Right,
right?
right.
So,
Because
so
you-
theoretically, the 330. So I guess we're talking fiscal 27.
Well, would they be bonded in 27 or 28? Would we start paying in 27 or 28?
Wouldn't be in 27, you'd start paying in 28.
Okay, so then the 1.162,
Would go up.
1.163 million would go up by 2.2 to 3.34.
No, it would be just the 89,000.
Right, it'd be the service for that
Million,
year,
yeah.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
always good to confirm these kinds of things.
Absolutely.
I don't do this in my day job.
So one of the things kind of wanted to look at is our biggest challenge going to be staying within Prop 2.5 on the operating budget. And we do have capital items that we're paying through taxation. I'm reluctant to borrow for those types of items because they're really like annual expenses, like a police car.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
We do that every year. The one question I have is how much wiggle room we have on drainage and sidewalks and roadway improvements. I mean, are we in a big enough potential bind this year that we may need to consider dropping those and not doing as much?
Yeah.
They're big numbers.
Yeah, well,
They're 2% of the tax rate.
they're not going away anytime soon, and
Right.
they don't get less expensive.
Right.
It's always good to keep chipping away at them, I feel, but if we, if we're a snake swallowing a buffalo, we may need to trim some of those,
Maybe something we need to discuss at some
Yeah,
point,
if
once we
there's-
see the overall picture.
if there are other needs that take precedence.
Now, the other thing on this spreadsheet is the fire engine replacement,
Well, it's a squishy.
which was moved to the deferred column, which makes me nervous.
Mhm.
How much do we have in the fire engine? How much do we have now?
300,000.
And
The plan was to fund it last year, 300,000, this year, 350, and next year, 350, so good, so,
So the total cost is like $1 million.
yeah.
and
Doing this,
we have an ambulance coming.
yes, which we've already appropriated for.
Right.
So that's not included in this fund.
And the next
Engine,
major item is an engine, right?
Right.
and has that been ordered?
And that's $1 million or so.
That's why we did this to fund it for $1 million, so this essentially pushes off the fire engine for
A year.
a year.
We're still borrowing.
We still have the Linfield one
I think so.
as a backup. Okay, so that, I guess we need to continue to think about that line item, right?
Dredging, we have for 1.9,
Yeah,
but that's this year, but there's more coming, right?
whoops. Looking at the wrong.
There's more area to drive.
But the 1.9 covers the area we plan on dredging this time around?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the total for this project.
I just know from somebody who was involved with the planning board that the number that they voted on last night or the night before was 4 million. So I'm just wondering, is 1.9 the end here, or is there more coming for other parts of
The
dredging?
planning.
Why was the planning board voting on the amount of dredging?
Permit that they had to talk about. I think it was Monday night. It's one of the items on their agenda.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have been voted on. They. maybe it's-
It was an approval or something, but the number
Yeah.
that was mentioned was 4 million. So that's why I was just wondering if there's more here. If 1.9 is it, that's good, then that's where our spreadsheet is.
And
There's some grant money that goes into the dredging. And the planning board was involved because the channel is adjacent to town land.
Right.
And they need permission from the planning board to do that dredging. Because that's what I understand is going on. So 1.9 is not the total,
it's what we need to come up with.
it's what we need to come up with.
So can we validate that,
Mhm.
Andrea, just to make sure that there's not more grants that have gone poof poof in the night? Um. PFAs is on here. I see. No reason to defer that.
Which one is this again, please?
12 million
There you go, thank you.
PFAs.
Yep,
13.
That's,
PFAS.
oh,
Yep.
PFAS.
Yep.
That is for the Lincoln Street.
Yes.
Now, I believe that Chuck told me that at one point, we thought we were gonna have to expand the water treatment facility for phase 2, but we think now we don't need to. So originally, we were talking a total of 20 million between Lincoln Street and the water treatment plant. It sounds like maybe the total will come in a little less. But they have to be done as separate projects because you have to keep one
Right.
water source online.
Chuck's got his hand up.
Mr. Dam. Chuck?
Oh, take it down.
I'm sorry, I can't get the mute button.
Okay.
No, so you're definitely in the ballpark, and you're definitely right about the water treatment facility up at Gravelly Pond. We won't need to do an expansion, but we will still have a project there, and it's still Lincoln Street will go first, and then we will do Gravelly Pond in the next year or two thereafter. I'm not sure what Andrea is showing in the spreadsheet, but we will do SRF funding for the Lincoln Street project, and there will be some amount of debt forgiveness as well as a 30-year borrowing eligibility if we so choose at 0%. So
So that
those are
doesn't change.
pretty
the
favorable
amount-
numbers.
That doesn't change the amount of the appropriation, that just changes the amount it costs us, is that correct on the repayments?
Well, there will be some debt forgiveness, which will be good news on the total, the we will need to authorize it, but we won't need to pay
Okay.
for it all. And then it will be 0%, not, 4 or whatever the bonding rate is.
Oh, so
We have 13 million.
Yeah,
Over 30 years.
Yep.
So it won't
This
need
is
to be
12.
15.
15
I
years.
have 12 because the 1 million above it should be moved down into the PFAS line. We're not even 12. Should be 13 together.
But so when you did this repayment on the PFAS, did you take that into consideration, the zero interest or not?
I did not,
Okay,
and I only did it for 15 years,
Mhm.
not 20.
when you say 30.
Very, under 30.
Yeah, I was told by the trust that 30 years is eligible for PFAS projects.
Okay. So that would have to make a decision of whether we really wanted to go out that far. How long do we
Yeah,
want to
this-
pay PFAS?
Historically, we've always tried to stay within 15 years.
Okay, yeah.
Do the auditors, is there a sensitivity about 15 years versus more? Is that kind of a magic number?
Not really, it's more of a like us rotating like the debt of like, okay, how much can you pay for and like, to get to the next thing.
Yep.
And not have stacking of like too many over the course of the decades.
Does the practical life of these facilities enter into this discussion?
It does for the borrowing purposes.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, so like, if something, useful life was 10, we can't go up 15, obviously, right? But we can do the opposite. If it has a useful life of 30 or more, then we can go for 10, we can go 15, all the way to 30.
So the question I have would then be, what is the useful life of a
Right.
PFAS facility? Who knows, I guess.
Well, I think most of the cost is expanding the size of the building.
No, but I guess the question goes to like in 15 years, we're gonna have to replace it at some other cost.
Building,
The,
The whole
the,
thing.
the
Filtration
devices,
system.
the filtration system.
the filtration system is a small piece of the total cost. Isn't that correct, Chuck?
Well, I mean, it all adds up. They're all several $1 million. So I would say the building and the vessels and the piping is all 30 plus years for sure. The media itself within the facility, which will be part of the initial capital cost, that will be rotated out on a much more very, very quickly, like once or twice a year.
That becomes an operating cost.
Right. So that will shift to operating. So that's all, but that's part of the initial capital, but not the, long-term liability or whatever we're looking at. So, and then I would just say the idea is the trust is the bonding authority that we're using. And so they are allowing us to go 30 years based on that fact that has at least a service life of 30 years, if not more. And at 0%, that's why that makes that much more attractive.
No, that's true. Then we have harbor master. These lines are kind of messed up.
I would just say we put a pin in that. We still have, that's an ongoing discussion with the harbor masters, with the
Okay.
harbor master, with their department. Will be, I'm sure there is gonna be adjustments there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hopefully so. So the DPW facility was pushed off in this spreadsheet.
Can I just ask one other thing? Are
Mhm.
the harbor master safety boats about 200,000? Is that dependent upon grants that are potentially at risk?
I believe that's our match
Okay,
towards those potential grant funds.
do we know the timing of those grants? I mean, are they likely to fall after town meeting or the knowledge of whether they'll be awarded or not?
I think we'll know before then.
And
think
this
we're
is the
expecting it
same
to-
grant company that we heard about in the last fiscal year, there was a,
Yeah, let's not discuss the harbor,
okay, but it's.
because
no,
he's
just-
going to
just-
go back with the harbor master and kind of figure out what we need for boats. Kind of re-examine what's on the list, so let's not spend a lot of time
Okay, well, I just.
talking about something we don't know exactly what's gonna come before us anymore. It sounds like it's changing, is what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I may not necessarily have the answer for you on that question anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
So people agree with the items that are deferred.
Mm-hmm, I do.
And people agree with the items that are borrowed. Borrowing is involved.
I'm sorry, which one?
Where borrowing is involved, do we agree with the fact that those items would be subject to long-term debt rather than?
I don't know that. I'm sort of thinking Bennett Street, just. I feel like, don't we usually try to incorporate road work and pipe work and sewer work in our annual capital?
That's the design for the project.
150.
It's a $4 million project,
That's Tappan.
right,
Are you talking Tappan or Bennett?
Bennett? Isn't that correct, Chuck?
Happens the 4.1.
Right.
What we wanna do
There-
is design.
Yeah, they're both complete reconstruction of everything. So drainage, sewer, water, lighting, sidewalk, roadway, all that. So that's why those are the bigger numbers.
So Bennett is 150 is for engineering only, or is it,
Correct.
okay?
Yeah,
so
that's
there's-
just to get the design out to bid over the next, year after town meeting.
Why would we borrow for the 150?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Just because it's lumped in with.
I mean, it's kind of like a regular capital, right?
Yeah,
We can't
we can't.
afford 150 without lumping it into a larger bar, we're so squeezed on the alternative option as it is. So you could wait, but then Bennett Street gets pushed off. The idea is to have design happen this coming year, so then for town meeting next year, we're asking for the construction dollars.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing that we wait. I just, it seems like a manageable number.
And you could change the line item to be one line item of Tappan Street and Bennett Street design for a total of 4.25, instead of having separate items on the town meeting.
And is the 4.1 also design work?
No,
No,
that's work.
right, I would just,
We paid for design work another year.
I see, that's.
I would assume it'd be a 4.25 total ask.
For
With the two together,
the two.
construction and design. Construction of Tappan, design of Bennett, just lump them together.
Does it make sense to do that, or as Andy was saying, why don't we just fund design work out of operating money? And then when it comes to doing this hard work of repaving and ripping it up and all that kind of, that's what we borrow.
Yeah,
Doesn't that make more
So
sense?
let's put that design work back under taxation.
yeah.
And when we get to actually working on the budget, including operating, then we're gonna have to
Figure it out.
look at things again based on what the total is.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, first of all, what we're doing tonight is likely to change.
Right,
I understand, yeah.
All right,
but just as a starting point.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it's good for us to understand where you guys are comfortable or
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Because
But I'm telling you, we are very tight on the operating side. We're very tight on the taxation side.
and I think that that's what we're gonna have to grapple with once we get the whole budget.
Yeah.
of saying, do we in fact this year have to do a Proposition 2.5 override?
Right, so is the
Exactly.
reason we're tight, and I don't wanna steal future thunder, but because the school,
The school's a big driving factor, health insurance is a big
Okay,
driving factor. Waste disposal is going to be a big factor.
like collecting trash,
I'm also in,
Yeah.
I'm also going through contract negotiations with 3 of the 4 unions.
so labor costs are gonna be
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah, well, not, to me. 20% increase on health insurance. 8% increase on school budget. Whatever the increase ends up, like, those are big. 17% possibly on trash, those are big chunks.
Mhm.
Contract negotiations were still ongoing. I'm pumping the brakes as we go through this process to fully understand what we can afford in the first year. I can adjust
Yes, you can.
that side of it, but. Well, there you go, there's the thunder.
That's why we're tight.
Yes.
That's why we're really tight, I would say. And also the fact, just the simple fact is that we have a lot, as you know, a lot of deferred maintenance that's coming due. And it doesn't get cheaper. So yes, you can always say defer and stick within, try to stick within the existing taxation without asking for an override, but you just, we know the next 5 years is millions and millions of dollars of capital. And we're facing a challenge.
Yeah, and I think that one of the other, I think the next 2 years are really tough is the problem. But I think one of the other factors is we had hoped that CST would be moving forward at a faster pace to bring in,
$1 million of tax revenues.
$500,000 at least, the tax, for phase 1.
Okay,
And because of the federal situation for research grants, they may not be moving as quickly as they originally intended to do. So we don't have that, $500,000 to help offset.
Yeah.
And we can't include that in our revenue estimates because I don't think we have a good feel right now of what the schedule is. If we did, we could up the revenues, and then we may know more by town meeting. Because I think the building fees for the phase 1 were gonna be about $500,000, But I don't know if their phase 1 is the same as it originally was either, or changed, and
So question, again, it's more of a big picture question, I guess. When I think about Tappan and Bennett, we're talking about bonding on those for 15 years. So you do those projects for about 4 million or more, they'll probably be about 6 by the time you do both together. And then we're talking about a 15-year bond on that. So presumably in that 15 years, there's gonna be another Bennett Street and another Tappan and probably 2 or 3 more iterations. So that 6 is probably gonna become 12, is probably gonna become 18. It's a little bit like the school business. We're always gonna be building a school. It just happens about every 25 years, give or take. So what other things are on this road, big road rework list? Or maybe a question for Chuck,
For
but
that,
He has a microphone.
Chuck can speak to the bigger, but. Yeah, so paving doesn't have as long of a lifespan,
Right.
but all the underground utilities.
that's the expensive stuff.
That's the most expensive part, and that has a length, 30 to 50 year lifespan, that type of stuff, so.
Right.
But is that the question you're asking, Maureen? Is it a life
My-
question or an amount?
My question is, this spreadsheet we have that looks out to 34 is probably halfway through this by 30, we're gonna have another Tappan Street on here. And, Jersey Lane or Beach Street or
Another-
something else, and
yeah.
they're just gonna, it's just what happens.
Yep.
But I just wanna make sure we understand that as we look at these numbers, because I'm kind of focusing at the total debt service number down on that spreadsheet. And, by the time we get to 34, we're at about 5.9 million in debt service a year. And in rough numbers, that's about 8 times what we're paying now for debt service as a town. I mean, we're paying about $870,000 a year. So these are monumental jumps. And I'm not sure this list is all inclusive, is where I guess I'm going. And I'm not trying to be negative about that. I'm just saying, from a budgeting point of view, we really want to understand what is all inclusive, because this number is going to get.
Well, and that's what we have to look at, because like over $1 million of this is for a DPW garage.
Right.
One of the decisions is gonna have to be made at some point is that a necessity
Exactly.
or not? And I think that's why this is kind of somewhat misleading, because it isn't everything that's approved. Chuck, do you have a sense of, I'm assuming the Tappan Street's about 4 million and Bennett's, I think you said was about 4 million. What other streets do you have that have all the utilities to be redone in addition to the paving?
Right. So it's not that many. At least anything can happen, certainly. And I haven't, accounted for every contingency. But this was done prior to me even getting here, I think, with Greg and Carol. A lot of the sewer work had been done that they could line. And so those pipes are now good for, another 50 years. The problem with Tappan and Bennett was we went to line them. Those were things we were just going to do in our kind of normal operating, but we couldn't. And so therefore they became replacement projects. And so that drove that number up. And so that's what's driving that. After Bennett and Tappan, we haven't found any that really need that same level of upkeep or replacement. There's definitely, you guys know, just as much as I do, there's a ton of water work to be done. I think we would, try to make that so that, we're biting off some number that everybody's comfortable with, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million a year to keep up with the water main. But those are, but that can be I think those are the types of things I would look at and say, okay, this year, for whatever reason, we can only afford the $1 million project, so we're just doing $1 million water main project. But then the next year, knowing that we have a little bit bigger project, and so we're going to be looking at a $2 million project. The kind of way I would picture it if I were you guys is the kind of next big one on my list is Summer Street. If we were to go and do all of Summer Street water main all at once, I would definitely be asking you for 8 to 10 million. But there's no reason that I can see right now that we need to do that all at once in 1 year. We could, but we don't need to. And so I'm going to break it up into palatable chunks, depending on, what makes sense from an engineering standpoint and what makes sense in the field. And then we're going to, ask you to fund those construction projects accordingly. And, that'll be, iterative with me, you, Tony, Andrea, and, all of these other decisions that get made as they get made, and what money comes in the door and what money goes out. So that's how I look at the utility work going forward. And, I do think we, the more we defer, the more we fall behind, but I think it's manageable from that perspective.
Thank you.
Well, that sort of answers, Maury, some of your questions are we gonna have a couple more streets every year to grapple with at 4 million per or something? And it sounds like maybe no.
That's summer.
At least not, not as I see it today.
Well, the clarification is helpful, because in my mind, I was mixing it in with all the other sort of street projects that we'll have to do that include primarily water. So this one is more, it's water, it's sewer, it's, the paving, it's a lot more.
It's-
Right.
Yeah, but Chuck, you must have a pretty long list of, you know, a street that needs stormwater but doesn't need water or sewer. You know, a street that just needs paving but doesn't need the others, or, you know, there's,
Right.
I guess I look at it as like
Well,
these larger capital projects that you're hitting the street, you're doing everything from soup to nuts.
Yeah.
But we
right.
had-
So we definitely have a few that we should try and work in, and that's what we've been trying to do is, like this year, for instance, we did the work over on Forest and Mill. We also did a fairly good sized portion of Colburn and Forest Lane because we could make the money go that far. And so that, that's the paving. That was not water, sewer, drain. We always find drain, drain's definitely one of those ones that we're just kind of assuming that we have to replace it when we go there. So that's kind of baked in. But Tappan's much bigger, Bennett will be much bigger, but the other ones are kind of like, we don't know every last catch basin and manhole that's going to need to be replaced, but we know that we can assume that there's something there. So those are how I look at those. And then the water goes forever. We're never going to be done with the water. And so we'll definitely probably have to fix a few roads before we're ready to do the water main that's underneath it. But I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to get them all done at once. So that's the plan. But
So
the streets go on. We have a backlog for no doubt.
No, I think that's very helpful. And, annually, every year, you tackle that stuff in our normal sort of $3 million capital budget. And presumably that would just keep going on. What's different here is that these projects are sort of tagged with a 15-year bond. And when they pop up, this is overlaid on top of the normal $3 million a year you're working on. And that's just why we're trying to, I think, get a little forward look on what those ones are. Obviously we did school a few years ago, Pine Street, Pleasant Street, Walker Road, big projects, Bennett, Tappan are big. Question is kind of, what do you foresee coming up going forward that's going to be added to this list? Because we're going to have to do it. It's just a matter of, we don't want to get 4 years out and go, okay, here's another 7 million. We got to figure out how to absorb.
Well, I think I hear summer is one of the ones that's.
Yeah.
But that's water. That's water that sort of fits into
And he
all
can,
those other things.
and he said he
Yeah.
can
You can phase it.
phase it so that it can fit in that annual budget that
Okay.
we've been
Yeah.
dealing with, rather than being a bonded project. I think
So I
that's
guess
kind of
the question is,
difference.
what are the 15-year bonding projects? As opposed
He
to
said
the
there's
annual?
nothing.
So that's
Right.
good.
So I'm going to try and avoid all of those. But
Great.
we'll see if there's something that pops up. But
To say nothing, we don't know.
I certainly understand that there's, that there's
hard
no
to say for
hard
sure.
locked in
Engineering,
science
it's hard
on
to say that.
on the sewer pipe that's gonna suddenly fail in a
Right.
street that we hadn't accounted for.
Right.
So Bennett and Tappan are the ones we know about. Those are the only ones we concrete know about right now. And so that's the plan.
But as you ask that question, like my blood pressure goes up a little because I think of you say the 3 million that we're working on an annual basis. 3 million is probably not enough on an annual basis today. And the cost of all those annual projects are going up each year. And that 3 million is shrinking because what's coming in under taxation, the other stuff, health and operational budget is growing. So this is where.
Yeah, but that's just true. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
we all in our houses have to defer projects because we can't afford them, and they cost more
Yeah.
5 years later. That's all.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's your house though, and your decision.
But that is the boat, that's the boat that we've been in
Yeah.
on this stuff. That's that's absolutely the conversation, exactly that, Tony, that we've had.
which is why we upped the annual budget.
We
Right.
get it,
Yeah.
and we know
Yeah.
that the three could change. But and I wanted to just inject another thought, because we had the initial discussion about the reserves and how it's not bumping up as much this year. And we fought hard to kind of make that happen, and now we're like, you know?
No,
Because part of, Tony, what's helped us make that, 3 million or so work from year to year is we've had like 1 million in excess reserves from a year to year basis because we take in more money than we planned for and stuff costs less than we
Right.
thought it would,
Right, right.
and that kind of helped oil this machine a little bit, and now we're not gonna have that this year.
Well, and I think the other
We've seen
thing
a
was we
decrease in
didn't
that.
increase taxes up to capacity during COVID. So we've had this excess levy capacity that we've been able to tap in so that the tax rates have still gone up.
Right,
It just hasn't required an override.
we haven't had to ask for permission.
Right, and I think that's what we have to take into consideration is the prop 2.5% is just a number. And if it costs this town more than that to run the town,
Mhm.
then I think, we have to seriously consider, is this a year we need an override?
Yeah.
Do we need more taxes to fund what we need to do? We don't wanna do it every year, but
Yeah.
it may be that.
It's periodic, we know we need it, but
It's been a long time since we've done it.
that school number that we got, the 7.86, is that, do we also kind of know, have a sense of the Essex Manchester?
Oh, that's the interesting part, that there's a dramatic shift in the appropriation between the two towns in what they presented this week. And it used to be like Essex is like only like 8.07 and we're 7.86. Whereas like last year, they were 8 something and we were 4 something.
Oh, so it's even.
So and I don't know whether it's the 2025 assessments that kicked in because they only do the assessments every other year. So in the formula for this year, there's 2 years of the 2023 assessments and 1 year of the 2025. So I don't know if I haven't looked at the underlying number. I don't know but I thought their assessments had gone up more rapidly than ours, so I'm confused. And that doesn't seem to be a huge shift in enrollments, but maybe there was. I mean, maybe it was enough to do the shift. I don't know. Yes, Ann?
Since that's 75% enrollment and 25% equalized valuation, it's gotta be enrollment.
I don't know. I think,
Yeah,
it's something I'm gonna look at because it really surprised me.
yeah. Yeah. Big.
It's a big number, yeah.
Mm.
So the towns are pretty
Yeah.
much on par this year as regarding the percentage increase.
Okay.
And Essex is expecting more enrollments. Cause they have developments going on. They have like the 30 unit thing.
Yeah.
Not yet permitted, I think.
I don't know. Sounded like,
So I also look at, when speaking of the school and the elementary school in Essex, and that question is gonna be a next year, possibly fall, maybe spring. That I start to look at as we make some decisions for this year and defer to out years. Yeah, I think about, the voter being presented repeatedly, multiple, times, question to approve X millions of dollars for this project, and it's gonna be a lot, and it's gonna happen rapidly. And so I think about that too, when we're talking about deferring things to the next year, because if you look at the longer spreadsheet that you guys are all familiar with, there's more coming.
yeah, but I think that,
And the town's been supportive.
and I think that we're in 2032, we got a huge chunk of debt service reduction in the schools.
And we might have new revenue coming on.
Right.
Right around
It's
2030, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's this year and next year that are seem particularly tight. And that's why it makes sense to defer some things if we're gonna look better in a couple of years. We need to look at that a little more closely probably, but, you know, I just. We have to
Well-
think about it.
Well, the big hits are building schools, and we've built 2 schools relatively recently. You can say the high school is approaching its theoretical half-life in 10 years. But once we get through Essex Elementary, the school building will be a while before we sign up for the next one, which is good.
Yeah, the
So-
next thing we'll hit are.
They are a little close together, Essex and this one, but
Right,
you know, we'll get through it.
right. Yeah, the
Public
next,
safety / DPW will be the next big one after. that.
Right,
and then capital, maybe some capital upgrades for the middle high school. Some things are end of useful life coming up.
Right.
But that's just not normal stuff.
But I think, Tony, your point is a really good one, is that at this April town meeting, the elephant in the room will be Essex Elementary in the fall. And I think it's highly unlikely you can squeak through an April meeting and not have a whole lot of questions about Essex Elementary. It's gonna go together. So I think we need to think about how that works.
Yep, and they had a meeting last night, there's, gave an update as to where they are with that feasibility process. To have the vote in October, the decision has to be made by June or July. In order to get the ballot question added to the November election ballot, the state needs to know by like June or July.
We need to know about the selected approach, the selected.
If you're gonna vote on it in October, so that, and you have a town, it would probably be one night Manchester, one night Essex, vice versa, and then the ballot question would follow that. In order to have that ballot question included in the November state elections, that has to be submitted to the state in June or July.
So the specific ballot question has to be submitted. And they're not gonna, so they won't be able to do that if schematic design is not until October.
so we don't need to necessarily include it in the state election ballot. I mean, that might not be reasonable.
I think that's their hope, but I don't know, that's just so we all are aware of, a timeline, a sense of timeline.
Yeah, because I had noted that they were targeting schematic design as October 26th. So, yeah, I don't see that happening.
I think just trying to get
This,
Manchester voters together in the middle of the summer to vote on something like this would be a really hard hill to climb, but.
the schematic design needs to be done before we can appropriate the money, right? Because we don't know what the cost will be.
When a schematic gets designed, schematic gets done, it gets priced, that price becomes, together with the design, gets submitted to MSBA for their review and approval. That estimate becomes the project cost. And that's then the cost that gets carried in.
So you're saying the schematics are not coming out till October 26th?
Yeah.
Well, there's no way we can vote on it in the fall.
No, not for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to be part of the state elections unless we did it as a separate ballot vote. Guess that's.
Yeah, but even if the schematics aren't coming out till October 26th,
Yes.
then don't you need state approval?
We need MSBA. I don't know if that
Yeah.
October is expected MSBA vote on
Oh.
or review, or that's when the documents are being.
Okay,
I'll have to ask.
okay.
But I think there's still linkage between the Essex Elementary and our budget.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just there.
And they have, so we have 3 of the 4 union negotiations this year, we have police next year, and they have school next year. So that would be April 27 town meeting voting on FY 28 impact. That could come at the same time that you're talking about those elementary school.
Maybe it'll get voted down.
So the budget that we're working on for this coming budget season is using labor numbers we've been in contract with for 2 years, and this is the last year on, is that right? Or are you negotiating for something that will impact the budget we're working on? So we probably need to think about, I don't know how we've done this in the
Yeah.
past, we don't have placeholders, we just.
No,
sort of-
no, they, no, I think that they know pretty well by the time we get to town meeting what it's gonna be.
Okay,
We've had our negotiations have tended to be completed before the end of the contract, right?
Sometimes, I mean, the last one, the police wasn't done, the
Yeah.
last time we did a salary reserve.
The new contract is effective July 1.
Yeah.
So we worry about that when we get to the operating budget.
right.
I mean, right now I have a
Not
placeholder,
to put anything, put you in a less advantageous negotiation.
Right,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's the tough part. So, yeah, it's, I think we have a number in there now. Hopefully, I would, negotiate a contract that stays within that number for year one.
I mean, traditionally, we have not had issues.
Right.
We have not had issues with
It's gone well.
coming into having a budget where we can't cover the contract increases. So whatever historically has been done.
I know it's been a little more
Yeah.
challenging when we go a couple years later and then we have to retroactive.
But we've also had traditionally like 8% increases on health insurance.
Right.
It's a different
environment now.
environment now. And the
Taxpayers are living that too.
and that's part of the environment I'm speaking to,
Right.
it's a different, but part of the challenge that I'm faced with is that your typical COLA negotiation numbers are being almost completely eaten up by
No,
health insurance.
well, that's what happened with Social Security this year. Social Security increased and Medicare increased to eat away the entire Social Security increase. So healthcare is an issue. Don't know how that one gets solved. Okay, so we feel we've given the input we want to give on this capital budget at this point. Anybody have any other input they would like to give? Not to say we're,
I mean, are we really gonna submit a budget that allocates $4 million for the senior center?
no, that's not on here.
I wrote that. That's the
Okay,
first.
I thought it says borrowing on here.
Yeah, I was the right column.
That should be one column over.
Yeah, thank you, Gar, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And I have a question about the very first line. This is the question, I believe, if I understand it correctly, is the software replacement.
Okay.
And I believe we're talking about deferring it. I thought this was pretty important. Can you help me with the sort of critical nature of this? I had maybe the mistaken view that it was fairly critical, but
Well, I am nervous about it because the software that we have is, it's being supported right now, but it's not being improved, it's not being,
that's, yeah.
it's like it's been bought by another company and the other company has their own software.
Mhm.
So eventually, I don't know when they're gonna cease to support our software right now. So that's something I just wanted to like put on here and like, it's not, they haven't given us a date or anything, so you defer it, but I'd just rather do it sooner than later.
Have you asked? I mean, I assume
I've asked,
we've
yeah,
asked and they.
yeah, every year I ask,
Okay,
you know,
fine,
and they're
yeah.
like, no, 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 and I'm like. Well, you know, when we first went to software, we asked them like, are you gonna sell? And they're like, no, 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 they sold the month we converted.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I might be a little.
But you'll ask again before town meeting.
But I just, seems to me to be more important to
It
get
does,
it
yeah,
done than
yeah.
defer. That.
Right, and then, so another thing that came up recently too is, we received a grant through the consortium to change our domain or website address from manchester.ma.us to manchester.ma.gov, I think is what we agreed on. And so that conversion is actually also taking place. So I figured we could defer this maybe a year and then finish that website conversion, because it's also gonna affect all of our email addresses, all of our logins, it, you know, it's a huge, it's a at least 6 months transition.
All of our saved places.
And does that affect,
That's why she's saying
that's-
wants to get that done first.
I'm just, okay,
Yeah.
first,
Yes,
that's the
first,
that's the
yeah,
word I want.
yeah.
It just seems to me deferred is not a good choice. I
We're
understand it's
making-
very tight. I got all this,
We're
all the speech.
making- We're
Yeah.
making tough decisions.
I think it's a tough decision that's
Yes.
gotta be rethought or thought further about, because I think it's too high a risk to have it not supported. I mean,
It
we have
means-
no control of that, I
It
think.
means, it would mean not. It would mean having to make cuts in the operating budget or not supporting the school and asking the town for an override.
Well, and I think,
There's not enough-
Well,
there's not
okay,
enough-
I understand. I'm not being naive
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, no,
The last thing I want is to have the town.
Yeah.
but I think, Peter, she's saying that there's gonna be time to convert the the website. That has to be done before they can even touch the software.
Oh, I
And
thought it was just the opposite. I thought you wanted to do the software before you got to the. Okay.
No.
Well, originally I wanted to do the software, and then I found out after I sent this to you guys that, the domain name is actually gonna be happening, and I don't have the bandwidth to do both at the same time.
Mhm.
so then, so you do the domain change and you have a FinCom reserve if you have an emergency. And you have a town meeting 9 months through the fiscal year if you have an emergency in order to cover something like this. So I think that you have,
I'm not
can
actually
do
thinking the
the-
dollars and cents. I think it's just the confusion of the fact if you suddenly have a software that's not being supported and may not be functional. That's what I'm really focusing on. I understand you've got all these backup pieces. I got it.
I think it'll be functional, it
It's
just,
supported right now,
I understand it's supported
Yeah.
now.
but
Maybe I'm misunderstanding the fact, how can you function without it being supported?
Yes.
yes.
You can. Okay, well then I missed.
So just a general comment going maybe a little higher elevation here. You're running a $22 million business with 70 employees. Software is important. And I hear the argument about schools and whatever, but when software doesn't work and your organization goes down, it stops, believe me. So I would be careful about being too penny wise and pound foolish, particularly on financial software, because without it, you've got a problem. So
yeah,
that's just a kind of a
Yep.
theoretical.
That's why I brought it up now.
Well, that's why I'm
Still
reacting.
supported.
Because I think it's
You know,
critical.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
critical
Yeah.
to be reliable and available.
right.
I understand we have all these emergency backups, but it's not, if you can work it without support, that's the critical item here.
well, I think we
The
need to
concern-
keep it in mind. And as we go through the whole budget.
Yep.
And see what the picture looks like.
Yep.
If it appears as if like we're gonna need an override, then we might pull something like this back in.
concern I have is we might be able to buy time now, but the conversion process takes a lot of time too,
Oh,
so.
I have no idea what that entails. I thank you, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be kept on in the conversation, because you asked, did we all comfortable with where we are, and that's what I'm not comfortable with.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on this?
So, thank you. I'm also operating under the assumption that our commitment to our, annual appropriation towards OPEB is in concrete.
Pretty firmly.
Yeah,
So that's another.
I mean,
You could play with that, but
Yeah.
Good question.
So what the OPEB schedule has, I think, is 360 for this year and about 150 for the year after that, and then we're fully funded. And then we can start, which is why we've got this 2-year period too, because then we can start. We would still pay the normal cost, which is about 150, but then we have about 400,000 of retiree premiums that would pay out of OPEB. So we've got a swing of about 600,000 when we stop making the OPEB payments and start paying premiums out of it. So that's a big number.
That is a big number.
That's
bigger than I
That
thought,
helps
actually.
us a lot.
And next year we'll be partway there because we'll be putting in 150 rather than the 360. So this is probably
360s for FY 27 and
Right.
150s for FY 28.
right. That's what I meant by this year, yeah. So that's why the fiscal year we're working on is particularly difficult.
Mhm.
And we haven't missed a payment on OPEB, and we purposely picked a more aggressive schedule than was required.
Yeah, also looking down to all the debt service and other things going on, that money is very valuable in the coming years.
Right,
I think getting OPEB solved and off the books is gonna help, borrowing too.
Yes, I think.
And our auditors should love that.
They do love it already.
I think we can hear that we really care about making that payment.
So that's why I'm
Yeah,
we're
no, I,
operating under that
Yeah.
assumption and,
Yeah.
that, you have that $600,000 swing in 2 years, you got potentially CST coming on board, it's kind of just like, hold on.
exactly,
Let's
right,
get through it, so.
right.
But if we were, I just wanted to ask that question
Yeah.
again to make sure.
No, it's a good question to ask.
And in the right direction.
yeah,
It's also possible that if we come to the point where we need an override, you could do an override for that OPEB payment.
yes, because I think people very much understand it as a discrete item.
If you did that, would you do it for the whole amount, like the 360 and plus the 150?
You could,
Just be done with it.
Yeah.
Be
if
done
you're
with
that.
It's an interesting thought.
I don't know,
I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah, I thought that's the question too.
Okay,
Okay, where do we go from here?
anything else? Do you have any other updates for us, Andrea, that we need to be aware of for that's going on in this fiscal year? Any red flags?
Other than me. Can I jump in here?
Yeah. I have you both on the agenda, so
I-
yes.
It's, I'm still getting used to the process that you guys are comfortable with. It's different than what I'm used to, but that's okay. Especially, it's especially, given the tightness of the year. Understanding the operating budget is really gonna have a large factor on how we really iron out some of this capital.
Exactly, right.
And we're still going through that process. Our hope for Monday is to bring information to you with kind of like a higher level picture. I don't know if we're gonna have the budget book per se
Okay.
on Monday, but I think we'll have, we have the data that we can provide you guys. It just may not be in that final looking form of a budget book. So I think a lot of some of the delay, where you're used to having that budget book, or you're used to having some of these things more ironed out at this point, is due to me being new and just kind of getting used to the process. It's been ingrained in me from my previous town that I don't speak to the finance committee until I have the blessing of the select board. Just, we do it a little bit different, you know, it's FinCom in a way comes first, and then select board and FinCom meet together, and, you know, so I'm just kind of getting used to that.
So do you expect we'll have a final quote unquote budget book by our first meeting in January?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would say, I think we're gonna catch back up to your normal speed,
okay.
at that point.
Then I think that, you know, our first meeting in January will then be a little different because we really will be looking at the budget for the first time then. Which is fine,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
fine. That's always our kickoff meeting, and so we just may have to spend a little, we might have to have a little longer meeting, Andy.
No, I think we're gonna move through it very efficiently.
We
Yeah.
might be able to send you stuff
Yeah, well,
before then.
it just
Yeah.
won't be in that final
Read if
budget
possible.
format, that's all.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
It'll be like the PowerPoint I did last
Which is-
year, maybe.
yeah. Okay. We'll adjust.
I'm adjusting as well.
And
It's also, you know, kind of like finance theory too. It's the approach that the town
different.
takes is different.
Right.
So, you know, I'm trying, I wanna make sure that I put something in front of you that you are all comfortable with, the select board's comfortable with, that the town's gonna be comfortable with. You know, I don't wanna come in and drastically change
Right.
how we approach the
Yep.
finances. It's an interesting way to do it, it's just. you know,
well, yeah, I think we set the schedule at that first meeting in January, and so we can figure, I'm still waiting to hear when the finance committee report has to go to print. I sent it to Debbie, but Debbie said that Tiffany does that, so I'll do a follow-up with Tiffany.
So I was gonna put together kind of like a reverse. I was gonna put together a calendar of key dates, you know, chronological and reverse. You really want to build backwards from that date.
Well, I wanna know.
Your meetings you can fill in there, but like the key,
I want to know how many meetings I have to get through the budget before we have to have things finalized. Because it's always tight at the end.
and I'm also doing that for planning board purposes as well. I'm trying to get the planning board to set their goal of having a written recommendation included in the book.
I wouldn't hold up the book for that.
That's what I'm saying, I'm trying to get them earlier. You know, to me, I think if a resident can see that recommendation in the book 2 weeks leading up to town meeting, it's a much better process for them to be, you know, to know where yeah.
The more information they have, then
I'm
they can
not
take
suggesting-
something to town meeting.
The book's gotta go when the book's gotta go. If the
Yeah.
planning board's in, it's in. I'm trying to kind
Right,
of get
no,
them.
I agree that I think people want stuff in writing. And I think that we've had town meetings where there've been a lot of pieces of paper handed out at town meeting with all different numbers and
Yeah.
people don't have them, and you know, there's the green one and the blue one and the yellow one and the orange one. Yeah, I'd rather have it all done in advance in the book.
When things are in this book and you go to town meeting floor, voting and discussion goes very nicely.
Yes.
When you're amending and adding and handing out pieces of paper, it's a total flip of the coin.
I've been there, I completely agree, so I'm trying to.
Yep.
Get that schedule out for the planning board as well.
Good, yeah.
So what's worked well for us in the past, I mean, you're basically looking at a quarter, which is 13 weeks and a couple more weeks in there. So, I mean, we're typically like a 15-week schedule. And we hit the big items like DPW, police, fire, public safety, harbor master, town government, library. School is always a wild card, you know, we're waiting around for their final budget. We try to get them in to talk. By the time you put all that together, it's usually just 1 or 2 extra weeks and then it's a scramble of editing. But my point is the whole thing does begin like in the first week in January. And if the first week in January slips to the second or third week in January,
Yeah.
it's a pile up at the end and it'll
Yeah.
be really tough.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's late this year again.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah, it's the 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is our first meeting, so that's. Okay,
and I'm unfortunately gonna miss that, but
Oh.
maybe I can dial in remotely. We'll see.
you skiing?
No, I'll be south.
Um,
So we may be able to get you that budget book in advance of the meeting. The first, your kickoff meeting, and we'll chat about, would you typically have a department at that first?
No.
meeting?
I think that the first meeting, I think this time we'll spend a little more time going through the budget. But we identify areas of concern, perhaps, areas where we think we're gonna need more information. And then we set the schedule for when we're gonna meet with the various departments.
Mhm.
That's kind of the purpose. So the first department head meeting would be on the 15th. Whoever, and you're gonna need to give us input as to which ones you're most comfortable with for us to go first on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because you may have some that you still need to work on, and those we should just do, because we really like to vote on the budget at that meeting if we can, so that we're,
And through it.
yeah, I don't get excited about readdressing things 6 weeks later when all of a sudden somebody has a completely different opinion.
And I would say also if the capital, it can be kind of nailed down for that department, that's great. If we get to, usually we deal with capital like at the end of March. And if
Tried to do it earlier.
this
doesn't
list
work.
we've been given, or whatever list we're working with is all red. And we're like starting anew in March, then we're going back, that's hard. It's very hard.
Okay,
I was talking to Tony about it, the legal line is running really high, and I think I mentioned that the last quarter, so I just wanted to mention that again, and I'll bring that up again when I do the second quarter report for next.
yeah, I
month.
did hear that we actually had a ZBA case. And the town council actually had to go to court.
Mm.
Which is like about the first time that I can remember.
Mm.
Do
you anticipate more of those in this coming year? Or are we in sort of an anomaly situation right now?
This was an old case.
Yeah.
And it was questioning the town's interpretation of the Bible. And so it was felt important that normally it's the defendant's attorney who does everything, but in this case, the town needed to be represented to.
Yep.
Or
But on the overall legal costs, if you look at the bills coming in, are they all kind of like unique to this year? Or do you think this is a trend going forward and we're gonna be seeing this 27, 28, 29 type deal?
I feel like this is unique, definitely start, I don't know how long it's gonna last.
Right.
So some of these projects and cases that are going on could end, next month.
Yep.
Or it could be another year.
And we could
So
also
I don't
get
know.
new things, like if we happen to have another 40B project.
Right.
You're now talking,
I think we
Yeah.
have safe harbor for that. Because you can't have we have an outstanding,
no,
no,
it's not told while it's in court.
Okay,
because HAC overruled us.
So we've had, that 40B, we've had the culvert, we've had, Board of Health, we've had planning
ZBA.
board. We've had,
Didn't you have a police personnel issue?
yep, we're going through contract negotiations. I do think that there may be some communication outward to department heads or committee chairs saying, as far as like a quick ask or email to council, we might need to like tighten that up. Cause we're really,
I
but it's
think
not the driving factor.
No,
It's that, but I think we do need to.
I'll make this comment that I've made before and been ignored. That the individual boards have no clue of the legal expenses that are being attributed to their boards. And I think that is extremely important
We can share that.
to have that broken down, because I think that there are times that it's cheaper to contact town council in advance of a case rather than having the case be appealed and go to the courts. And I think but I agree, I think there's opportunities for, I think some boards are using town council more than others.
Yep.
One thing that might be helpful, and Anne probably remembers this from FinCom years of old, but there was originally a spreadsheet that just kind of listed without a lot of pertinent information, what were the current legal challenges that the town was dealing with. And I remember it so vividly because when I got on this committee, it was crazy. There were like 13 or 14 things, and they were big eaters of cash. And I remember this committee said, whoa, let's prioritize. And I think it was kind of like an outside group a little bit, but it was, I think, very helpful saying, let's try to figure out how we get this one off the counter, this one off the counter. And I think you're right, Sarah, that sometimes these things there are lots of little things that eat away here, but maybe having a list of which ones have been on a long time and kind of a little just reflection of,
Certainly,
we end this quickly or we let this one run a little longer, or what do you do?
once they're in the courts, it's all a public record.
Right.
So there's no reason why the actual
Exactly.
cases can't be listed if they're gone to court. It's different if the stuff is being negotiated behind the scenes, but.
I think it's helpful just to sort of say, okay, we're currently in this year, what's the current expenditure that's going on in this one. If it's easy to do.
Yeah, I track that.
Good. Do you have any updates for us on the facility planning committee or the school building committee?
Not too much since we last talked, probably, I guess we did have a meeting with the consultant on the DPW design and public safety design options have been sort of factored into the thinking there, just to have a sense of it. And that was helpful. I think the Pleasant Street site is still kind of being talked about as an option, though. And there's also discussion about, whether, to try to do it all together versus, DPW and then public safety separately.
Did I read
separately.
sort of listening to the last night's presentation, a lot more discussion of putting the two schools together? There seemed to be more discussion of that than I recall from the first meeting.
Oh, so I'm talking about facilities planning.
Yes, yes.
From the school thing for now, but I'll get to that in a
Oh, I'm
minute.
sorry, you're talking about the operating budget.
No, I'm talking about facilities planning committee, which is the town.
I'm sorry, I was talking about the schools.
Town building projects, not school. But anyway, so that's ongoing. And we talked a little bit tonight about, you know, hey, when do we want to afford to do this? So. And then the school, to your point, Peter, is, so whatever options we indicate to the MSBA that we're going to study, you know, to the state, those are the things that the architect has to study. So Apple Street was a potential site that was listed, and so we had to go through that, but we've kind of dismissed that. It's got a lot of additional costs that would hit it. But otherwise, the actual so the school site and the option of possibly, you know, doing something that commingles with the memorial project. Given that the head count at Essex is relatively small, it's like 250 kids.
Yeah.
And but I think it's the memorial project kind of shapes up as being not a great option. You know, you kind of the tennis courts go away to, you know, accommodate parking, you know, which that's a tripwire all on its own. And it requires an addition, you know, so then you're doing project in 2 locations, you know, so if you're looking for an opportunity to spend more money, you know, that's a great idea. Not super efficient. So, but otherwise they're going down a good track, and I think the current phase, which is PDP, preliminary design program, that's where they do the demographics, that's where they, you know, they understand the school program and they forecast the size of the school that's required. So all that stuff gets submitted to the state, to the MSBA this month. And then once they review it, we go into the next phase, the second of the 3 phases in feasibility study, which is.
And that phase is where you actually pick a design.
That's where we hone in, that's where we truly begin to, you know, more thoroughly evaluate the architectural options, you know, for the different things and that will include memorial still. And, but at the end of that phase, that's when we'll recommend a particular design that we'll study in schematic designs, and that will lead us up to October.
And I thought Pam said maybe that was the February timeframe. Does that seem right?
For the
For
PSR?
picking the option.
Yes, well, so PSR ends in May 26. So
Yeah, that's
at least that's what I noted. I might be off on that, but
Okay.
yeah. In fact, that sounds a little late to me almost, because then that only leaves like 5 months for schematic design. It's a small school, but it's a little tight. Yeah. Anyway, so that's all the news. It's fit to print.
Okay. Liaison updates, I can say I did meet with the fire chief and we did talk about capital items and, you know, maybe some of these items are slightly overstated based on, you know, some things he made. And we also talked a little bit about the Safer Grant staffing and deputy chief and, you know, so he's trying to think outside the box and come up with the most cost-effective solutions for the town. That's what I'd say.
We've not met with the DPW since Dean's report last meeting, so there's nothing new there.
And does anybody want to be a liaison with the police department?
I'm happy to take that on.
Okay, I'm concerned because Todd is retiring in June. So I kind of see this as a transition year to some extent.
Okay.
And I just think it's important that,
Yep. We can try to meet
Okay.
with him. I'm gonna miss our next meeting, but presumably the next day I can email you my update.
that's fine. Okay,
Speaking of missing meetings, I will be away between about the 20th of January and the 10th of February. And I believe we may have a meeting scheduled during that time.
And the meetings will be every Thursday, as I recall.
Yes.
I will be away the first Thursday also.
okay, wait a minute, let me get my calendar. My calendar is in a different location on my phone than it used to be. Due to user error and I can't get it back to where it was.
Yeah, and the meeting I will miss will be the 29th of January.
Okay. Peter, what meeting are you missing?
The first one,
January 2nd, 7th?
seventh, is it eighth, seventh?
Eighth.
Eighth, I think you said.
And you're missing that?
I'm missing that too.
Okay.
I'll be around for this.
Okay. Okay. November minutes. People look at that.
Yep,
Do I have a motion to approve?
you do.
Second,
Okay. All in favor?
Here.
Okay.
Can I, is it possible, we've normally had, that have been sent to us as a Word doc, and these were online. Can we get them sent to us?
I'm having a lot of problems. Because what's coming through my email from the town now is always PDFs.
Right,
It's not Word documents.
Right.
And I'm too cheap to pay for PDF editing on my laptop. So I can't even download them to my laptop. I have to print to a PDF and then load that PDF to my laptop.
You would be both.
One would say maybe I should pay for the Adobe software, but so something's changed.
There might just be a setting that it's when it was happening on my computer and when you click on an attachment that comes up as a Word document as an attachment,
It goes to
click
PDF.
on it and it's popping up in a PDF form.
Yeah,
right.
So it's a default
A setup.
program that you're opening attachments with, and it's.
my
It just
setup,
needs to be changed to Microsoft, yeah.
my setup, okay.
Yeah.
Because Adobe's trying to get you to pay for their
Right.
editable version.
How do you change this?
At a broader level, I've
I had IT
over the years
that.
just
Okay.
save these in a
Once you
folder.
know how to do
And I
it.
will tell you, Debbie, I saved her bacon years ago because she said, I don't have FinCon minutes from like 2000 and, like
Right,
18 to 21. And I said, well, let me send them all to you. And I marched in with a zip disk. And when they were in Word format, they were really nice to be able to search.
oh, okay,
And I will tell you, when we were like trying to figure out like fire truck or bond or something, you could type it in and.
Yeah.
So I don't know, this may be way beyond where everybody wants to go, but when minutes were in Word.
Yeah.
And we could dump them in a folder every year, it was great, in my humble opinion.
Imagine Gail's sending you a Word version and you're just.
no, we're getting a PDF.
You're getting
Getting a PDF, and then, I don't know about all of you, but I got something where I. had to
I
go
think it's
onto a
coming out of
site and
SharePoint.
Yeah, out of SharePoint.
I think the minutes are being done in SharePoint now where they didn't used to be, and I think that's the difference.
All right, we'll look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for raising that.
I have no idea.
Next meetings. So we have a meeting Monday night, December 15th, joint with the select board, and it's at 6:30, okay,
6:30.
not 7.
Right,
It was posted today at 6:30, so.
Is that when our business starts or that's when?
The only item on the agenda is the budget,
Yeah, there's not a lot on the agenda for Monday, so.
unless he's changing it tomorrow.
Building committee meeting, but that's-
Oh. I mean, I received both the select board and the FinCom agendas were posted today, and they both only had the budget on it, had no other
I
select.
also got an agenda a little bit later with some other stuff after the discussion of the budget
Yeah,
for the.
either way, you
for
guys
the
are the
select board.
first thing on our agenda.
Okay, because usually we're at 7. But that's okay, that's okay.
6:30 is fine.
6:30 is
We
fine.
can cope with 6:30.
It doesn't have to be, our meeting doesn't have to be posted till
tomorrow.
tomorrow, right?
So-
Yeah.
So we could put our consent agenda
First,
first.
We'll leave it at 6, we'll show up at 6:30.
Yeah, just show up.
We can leave earlier that way.
Thank you.
And then we have the Thursday, January 8th meeting as the budget kickoff review and to establish the schedule.
and essentially every Thursday thereafter.
Correct. And what I'm going to do, again, like I did last year, is we request that we be in room 5 with 1623 studios. Okay, there's more room and the recordings are better.
Yeah.
Since we have people coming in to talk to us. Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
You just go push that red button, please. Thank you.